All right, I'll call the school committee of October 22nd, 2025 to order. Superintendent Ray, would you call the roll?
Good evening. Michelle.
Here.
Lisa's excused. Marie.
Here.
Randy.
Here.
Mayor Groman.
Here.
John's excused. Megan.
Here.
Chad.
Here.
Marcus. Here. Cordelia. Here. Jeremy's present.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Adjustments to the agenda. I do have one, item K, under new business. That's a consideration of policy AD. We'll postpone that and take that up in a future meeting to allow the policy committee more time to work on it. And with that, I would take a motion for item E, approval of last meeting's minutes.
So moved.
Second.
That's moved by, without John here, we don't have the
Marie.
the classic 1-2 punch on the motions. Yeah, so that's a motion by Marie, second by Chad. All those in favor? Okay, I will read through the consent agenda and take a motion after that. For appointments, we have Macy Dugan, BPS EdTech 2, Vanessa Perkins, BPS EdTech 2, Morgan Riefenberg, BPS EdTech 3, Delani Nigezi, BHS Custodian, resignations, Linda Crapo, Amber Rue, transfers, Deb Vadnais, and Haley Bilbrey.
So moved.
That's moved by Marie, seconded by Chad. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? And that's unanimous. That takes us to the superintendent's report. Of anything Jeremy would like to cover, including the enrollment update.
All right. Let's. Good evening, everybody. Let's start with enrollment update. This is kind of the numbers that obviously there's still probably a tweak here or two that will occur, but just kind of walk through where we're at this point. We will have for counts attending and counts subsidy, you'll see are two different numbers. And the reason the different numbers is because you have students here from Dayton or Rundle who are tuitioned in. You don't get the subsidy count for those students because you're receiving a tuition payment from the municipality. So if you look at our subsidy count, we're at 2448, which is plus 36 students, or 1.49%. Now remember, this is a snapshot on October 1st. Since October 1st, we have had 17 students register to school. Boy, I would like to have that in the count, but it's not going to be because you're on October 1. When you look at our economic status, we are 11 students higher, so almost 0.72% increase from last year. You would say, why is your special education count down? Typically, you will see that number rise and fall over time, and I suspect it will be higher than where we were last year at this time by the time the school year ends, because you'll have kindergarten students who will get back on and go through that piece. ELL count, you'll see we're at 444, so that's 35 plus from last year. You can see our pre-K numbers are up. Our growth right now is at the high school level, and that is really around the size of a class that graduated versus the size of an incoming class, but that's where the numbers appear to be. The good news subsidy-wise is 32 extra kids will certainly help. 35 extra ELL students will certainly help. So when you don't see a negative on the enrollment side of things, that's always a good day, because that's half of your formula in your allocation, with your other half coming on valuation, which we know will increase. So student-wise, we're in pretty decent shape. I'm pretty pleased with this. Any questions just about enrollment first?
Just ask briefly, so the high school, we just have a larger, what, 8th grade class coming in?
We had a larger freshman class, is 200 and something, versus what our senior class was last year. Other items that I have on there, I'd like to ask Shelley to please come up and talk a little bit about Pillars of Pride, which was on Saturday night. I think we're very excited about the results. I can't thank Shelley, Michelle, and the sponsors for everything that they did. Michelle and Shelley put a ton of time into this event. For a while there, I thought Michelle was on payroll because she was clocking in every morning. But it was a great event, and I'd like to turn it over to Shelley.
Thank you. So on Saturday evening, the Biddeford Education Foundation hosted our 8th annual Pillars of Pride recognition event at the Lincoln, where we honored Joyce Tarpey and Maureen Graham Mason for their contributions to our school community. Many of you were in attendance, and I thank you for that. Both of these ladies have invested so much in our community and the success of our students, and making sure these kids know that they matter every day. So in addition to being a recognition ceremony, the event serves as the foundation's largest fundraiser, and this year's profit was over $20,000, with donations actually still coming into my office today. I received another check. And I want to thank Michelle, because without her this would not have come together. All of our sponsors, our donors, the attendees, for the tremendous outpouring of support this year. And without these strong community connections, we could not have met with success like this. For those of you who may or may not know, the foundation serves and supports mini grants for innovative classroom projects. We support new clubs and activities and provide assistance for basic student needs like food to our backpack programs and clothing for kids in need and housing support. This success couldn't have come at a better time, with many of our families at risk of losing SNAP benefits for the month of November. These funds will allow us to ensure that our backpack program cupboards are full and that we can support families who will be struggling with access to food. So if anybody's looking for more information about the foundation, you can visit us at BiddefordEducationFoundation.org, or absolutely feel free to call my office. So thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. What a remarkable evening, and what a great job. And it sounds like the total raised is 20 some
Above 20,000.
20,000, which is just incredible for helping kids and families. And Michelle, I don't know if you want to offer some comments, because you did such a great job and put so much effort into it.
I don't think I really had any other comments other than, again, just a big thank you to our donors and sponsors and everybody that came. It was a great event, always lots of fun, and I think the online auction really was a lot of fun this year too. So looking forward to next year. We'll be getting at it probably in about 6 months probably. So thank you to everybody.
Yeah, and thanks to all the businesses that stepped up and provided items for the auction. That was really great. And obviously the awardees, Maureen Graham Maison and Joyce Tarpey, so deserving. Really a great evening. Jeremy, others?
Yeah,
topics?
also just wanted to talk that this week is National School Safety, Bus Safety Week, and wanted to personally thank our bus drivers. We were able to do a barbecue last week for them, as they play a crucial role guaranteeing our students have safe transportation to school each and every day. Last night I sent you an email about the possible loss of SNAP benefits on November 1st for families. We have 1,545 kids who are economically disadvantaged. I was able to be on a call with Shelley, Marty, myself, and 2 heads of food pantries today, and we'll be devising a plan to try to jumpstart some fundraising to make sure kids don't go hungry. I was surprised when I heard today that, and Marty, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Biddeford Food Pantry's weekly budget was running around $7,000 a week to make sure that people had food, and that serves one section of our community. young kids going hungry is not something that we can have happen. So we're working on some plans to see if we can jumpstart something pretty quickly. I want to remind people that on Sunday the 26th at 10 a.m., the STEM 5K Race and Candy K Fun Run is at BMS. On the 4th, BHS and BRCO2 vocational students will be home, remote day on Election Day. November 6th, we have the chorus. We'll have a Veterans Day concert. On Friday the 7th and 8th, our high school drama club will have a production at BHS Little Theater. On the 8th, from 9 to 12, there will be a holiday craft fair that benefits the Bridges program in Tiger Gym. And then, Shelley, what is the date for Wreaths Across America? We have Wreaths Across America that will be kicking off December 8th, kicking off their annual trip to Arlington, starting at Biddeford Middle School.
Excellent. Question for Jeremy? Yeah, pretty stark to look at the food situation and understand Biddeford Food Pantry covering somewhere around 150 families a week, and I think you identified 1,545 SNAP benefit eligible kids within our system, and that benefit will end, or it will not be available on November 1st. So we're gonna have to pull together as a community.
And it's not just our children. We'll have staff in the same boat too. So we need to be focused in on how we're going to support people through this.
Okay, well, good. I'm sure we will. We'll find a way. Our student representatives, we always love to hear from you. I think we'll need to borrow a microphone over there, and I'll leave it to the two of you who would like to go first.
All right. Since we last met, our sports teams have been working hard. The other night we had our field hockey senior night, and the day before that was the girls' senior night. Last week we had the boys' senior night, and this Friday night is our boys' football senior night against Kennybunk. Boys' soccer, along with field hockey and volleyball, are all in their respective playoffs. On the 21st and 22nd, we had our challenge day, where the sophomores were split in half and participated in an all-day experience with the challenge day members, where we learned more about each other and connected more as a class.
Excellent. Thank you, Marcus. Cordelia.
So last week, I went over to BIS and got a tour of the building with 3 fourth grade students and spent some time talking with them about what matters most about school. When I arrived, the kids were wearing special pins that they explained they had to find their match to help with meeting new friends. The kids then told me about extracurriculars and things that they do that make them feel good about school. They're looking forward to their Veterans Day concert in November, where they'll sing and perform for veterans to thank them. They were also excited about being in band and explaining that each instrument has their own day for practice. Kids shared the Lego Club is going well. They also talked about how much they like some days with Miss Aberley, and it gives them something to look forward to during the school year. They shared with me about the book vending machine and how the student of the month gets to pick a book. They showed me the I Am Pride sign, where students who get character awards take photos. In my trip to BHS, my biggest takeaway was that along with academics, BIS is dedicated to teaching kids how to be good people and develop character.
Excellent. Great reports. Questions for Ms. Kane or Mr. Perkins? I do have one quick one, Cordelia. So what was the program that you participated in where you as a high school junior went over to BIS?
So it wasn't a program, it was for the school committee so I could get a better look into what school life is like for students at BIS.
Excellent. That's good. That's a good and helpful report. And note that, as Jeremy said, the Veterans concert is on November 6th. Great. Okay. That unless I'm mistaken, which happens frequently, there are no committee reports. Are there any, do you want to speak about evaluation at all, Marie?
We'll just be meeting later in executive session.
Okay, and any other reports from committees that I've missed? There is a link for the work of the policy committee there that you can see, and thanks to everybody who's leading and running those committees. Okay, we don't have any old business, so that takes us into...
Marty, Marty,
stop
just
there.
on negotiations personnel, we will have 2 contracts that we'll need to negotiate this year. Transportation and then the support staff, ed tech combining with admin assistants. I'm trying to get dates locked in fairly soon and not push that off until the springtime.
Any questions about that? That's good, thank you. Look forward to that process, and I'm sure it'll come to a good outcome. Okay, it takes us through to a series of new business items. The first one is item A, which is a lead assistant to the facilities director. Do you want to take us through this, Jeremy, and then we'll look for a motion?
Yeah, currently we have 2 open facilities position, and Bill and I have talked about how at least in maybe a couple of years you'll be thinking about retirement, and just very concerned about that handoff piece. And he's really thought that it would be best to hire like a lead assistant facilities person and start thinking about how we can transition some duties over time. Lot to our buildings, a lot of different systems to know and information to pass on. And I wanted to put this forward to you guys as a proposal. I don't think there's any budgetary impact on this, but looking to figure out what our future planning would be for that position.
Questions for Jeremy on this? Megan?
So I see in terms of the budget impact, what you're saying is we have 2 vacant positions that you would use to make this position. So I think when you're talking about him retiring, would you then open those positions up again, or are those positions?
I think we would open up those
Okay,
positions.
so they're not gonna be lost forever.
No, and I think it would also, again, one of the things that can be tough around that transportation facilities position is that, that's a position that you're on call pretty much all the time. And we may want to see, like in the future, is there a situation where you have a facilities and then you have an assistant, or a lead maintenance person that might take on some of those duties, but the thought is to bring those back, Megan.
Did I see you, Michelle, or a question? Go ahead,
Did,
Michelle,
but
and then Marie.
You kind of answered my question, but I do think it's a great idea that we start looking to pass on some of that institutional knowledge. I guess just to kind of go off what Megan said, since we have the 2 vacant positions now, will one person be able to do all the work of whatever those 2 positions are vacant for?
No. I mean, it's just honestly no. We struggle in that category too. I mean, we struggle to get candidates for those positions. But we thought that maybe a little more response might help us get one. Bill, if he had his choice, he would do a little bit overtime, do a little bit less administrative work, and a little bit more hands-on work. And he would actually enjoy being out there solving some of the problems with his own hands than just dealing with those administratively.
Marie?
No, I think all of my questions have been answered based on what Megan and Michelle brought forward. And, same sentiments. I think it's a good idea to get someone to start transitioning and gaining as much institutional knowledge as possible, so that we have a smooth transition when Bill does, come time to retire. So I'm in favor of it.
Jeremy, go ahead.
I would just say, I think one of the things Bill and I have briefly talked about is not just a transfer of the knowledge to somebody else, but there's just certain things that we need to put on paper about systems, and Sometimes it's just little things about certain quirks that we know about in those systems that other people wouldn't recognize. You know, one of the things that is important is that, you know, between Bill, Paulette, and myself, we know that if the power goes out and that backup heat doesn't come on in a little room out there that's attached to the new thing, we could have a freeze up. So it's just some of those pieces that are not just trading off the problem, but also recording and, well, lack of better words, a diary handbook of some of the little things that need to happen.
Assume there must be, is there an internal candidate for the position?
It would be a wide open position.
One question is, the proposal is budget neutral for the current fiscal year, and the thought would be to revisit it going into the next fiscal year. Okay, other thoughts, comments, or anyone, Chad?
The job rec indicates that a qualification is required to have an associate's degree in facility management, engineering, architecture, construction management, whatnot. Do we believe that may artificially limit the pool of applicants? I mean, should there be a stipulation that if you have real-world experience for 10 years, you can bypass the educational piece, or is it really necessary that you have an associate's degree in one of those fields?
I don't think it's necessary, and it certainly wouldn't limit anybody. And we can certainly make that change, or other, you know, professional experiences on that piece.
Yeah, that would be my recommendation. Thanks.
All right, with that, is anyone comfortable making a motion?
Make a motion that we approve this position for a lead assistant for facilities.
Second.
So that's moved by Marie, seconded by Chad. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Good discussion. Sounds like a good step. Okay, that takes us to item B with the truancy analysis of part 3, main comparables. You want to take us through this, Jeremy?
Gonna hand it off to Chris.
I didn't even see him come up to the podium. He's a
Sneaky, Marty,
secretary.
sneaky.
Very nicely done.
Good evening. In your packet, you have a memo, which is the third that's been provided to the committee and the public in as many weeks. That was assembled by Dr. Sear and me, and it's responsive to your request for a regional analysis of Biddeford's attendance trends. You'll see that this report is different than the previous two that were provided in that it analyzes chronic absenteeism in Biddeford schools, comparing it to state and local data to help us contextualize our district's performance. Biddeford's 2024 chronic absentee rate is 29.8%, and that exceeds the 8-district comparison average of 24.5%, but also demonstrates a significant improvement with an 11.6% decline since 2022. The analysis that you have in your packet identifies key demographic factors that are strongly correlated with chronic absenteeism. For example, economically disadvantaged students are 200 to 300% more likely to be chronically absent than their higher income peers. It's no surprise if you look at the bar graph, I think it's on page 7 or 8, that Cape Elizabeth has the lowest rates of truancy. Similarly, students with disabilities face approximately 300% higher rates due to medical appointments, health complications, and social challenges. Importantly, these risk factors don't simply add together, they compound, they multiply, meaning that students facing multiple challenges experience disproportionately higher absence rates. Biddeford serves a particularly high needs population with, in any given year, between 56 and 63% of students in poverty. 19.23% of students receive special education services. Nearly 20% identify as Black and 8.5% as Hispanic. And this contrasts sharply with lower absentee peer districts like South Portland, which is about 1/3 economically disadvantaged, but has 15.6% chronic absenteeism, and Saco with 21% economically disadvantaged and 15% chronically absent. Additional factors include disciplinary practices. For example, students receiving out-of-school suspensions are 350% more likely to be chronically absent, and that does not include the period of time for which they are suspended. And health conditions like asthma, for example, increase students' chance of being absent by 35%. The report concludes that while Biddeford's demographic challenges partially explain higher absenteeism rates compared with our peers, the district's year-over-year improvement suggests that its comprehensive, multi-tiered interventions, particularly from resiliency coordinators, are effectively addressing absence barriers despite serving a more vulnerable student population than our peer districts. And Mr. Ray and I were talking the other day about local analogs. I'm not sure, Jeremy, if that's anything you want to share about, staffing ratios and those sorts of pieces, or if you wanted to leave it there. Okay. I'm happy to field any questions, or Mandy's happy to field any questions from the committee.
Marie?
Well, first of all, thank you for putting this together. I think I was the one who asked for that.
Sure.
I found it extremely informative and also a little disappointing. So for me, when I look at our data and understanding everything about our demographics that go into where we find ourselves, for me, I then find myself asking, okay, so what's next? What are we now going to do about where we find ourselves? The numbers are, we've kind of been in this kind of little ho-hum, with some improvement, and I think the resiliency positions we have, do make a difference. But I also would like to see those numbers, improve, even given all the data on the demographics that we face. So I guess for me, it would be, and I think you alluded to something that, we may want to look at in the implications for the Biddeford Public Schools as far as looking at some of the factors contributing to this difference. And you kind of alluded that we may want to, deep dive into that as well. And I think, yes, we should. I equate that again, I can go back to coaching. If I've got 3 games into the season and I'm kind of seeing, okay, we're not doing everything that we'd like to be doing as well as we're doing, what do we need to do, practice-wise, going into those next games moving forward? And I kind of see this in the same thing. We've got the data, we know the demographics, so what are we going to do?
Yeah, there's a true inverse relationship to per pupil spending and chronic absentee. So if you look at, for example, the top of page 7, you'll find that the districts that spend the most per pupil have the lowest chronic absence and truancy rates. That's not an accident, right? So in that top line graph on page 7, you've got Cape on the left, and you've got Biddeford and Augusta on the right. And then if you scroll down to page 8 and you look at per pupil expenditures, you've got RSU 23, York, Yarmouth, kind of all the Gold Coast schools over here on per pupil. And then you scale right down and you're at Biddeford, Saco, Stanford, MSAD 57. And you back out from Saco, Thornton Academy, and those sorts of things, that's a little bit distorted. So you kind of get what you pay for a little bit as a community. And so I think that's a very good question for the board to consider and for the finance committee to look at as we think about developing our next budget. Where are we investing our money? How much are we investing, and in what positions?
And that was going to be the next point, because we've been looking at this data for a while. Jeremy and I have had several conversations. We've had several conversations as a board. They've had them in finance. I know we put this out to the public, I believe, earlier this spring, if I'm not mistaken. And if you look at the information, and if anyone's following at home, if you go to the information sheet that shows, what districts spend, per pupil, if you look at that information, we're at the bottom of that list, and that's what Chris was alluding to. So I think it's a deep dive that we really need to be, having and, working with the data that we have. And I still think we need to do something about it. And what are we going to do about it, based on the information? So that's where I'm coming from. I think the information is there. It's been put here. It's been put here extremely well. In a very informative way with with financial data as well as demographic data, but for me, okay, what are we gonna do?
And a quick word, Marie, on the demographic data piece. I had a school committee member reach out to me about the chart that's on page 5, which has a significant amount of the chart blacked out. That's not an attempt to hide anything from the public. Under FERPA, personally identifiable information is considered any student set that has 10 or fewer students in it. And so where you see that blackout, that's a redaction because it's considered PII, personally identifiable
Okay.
information. And that's why under like multi-race or Hawaiian Pacific Islander or what they call Indian, which is Native American or Asian, those pieces are all blacked out because those are either 10 or fewer students. So that's not an attempt to hide anything from the public.
No,
That's just,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
a prohibition under FERPA.
Good info. And I guess my last piece would be, do we communicate with other districts as to, that have found successes as to what they're doing, looking at what we're doing? You know, are we looking at, I mean, I look at the drop that Lewiston had. They still have a high rate, higher than ours, but they did have a significant drop in what other districts might be doing.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we get together as York County and Cumberland County superintendents and assistant superintendents on a regular basis. Those agenda tend to be full, and they tend to be full of policy and law changes. And unfortunately, in those contexts, we haven't had the opportunity to drill down on more niche issues like this. I think part of it's a function of time, and part of it's also a function of, you know what, Cumberland, Cape, they don't really have to talk about this. This is really a more service center town conversation that would, we would benefit from sitting in a room with Auburn, Augusta, Bangor, Lewiston, Sanford, kind of
South Portland,
demographically similar
Sanford, yeah.
towns. Yeah, so I'd like MSMA, for example, to do some leadership around this and get those groups together because we have a lot more in common than we don't. I mean,
Let's do it.
yeah, I'm here for it.
All right.
Megan?
Again, I appreciate this information as well. And again, I understand the piece around dollars per student. I get it, and I get that we don't have as many dollars per student as Cape and York. What I do know is that we've made an investment in truancy and chronic absenteeism in this district from this leadership in this board and hiring resiliency coordinators. So, the dollars we do have, I feel like we've invested in this specific area. And so, and I think everybody who works in our district works really hard. I'm not making any criticism about the work that's being done. But I think when I look at this data, I can understand the research about demographics and why some demographics struggle to attend school more than others. The missing piece for me is I'm not sure what our interventions are. I know we have resiliency coordinators, but I think I've said, and this might be my 4th or 5th public session, that I don't really understand what we're offering for interventions. I got the story of one intervention that we were offering. So I know about some days, and I don't mean to keep harping on that. It's just the only intervention I've ever been told about. So considering this data, because this is really important, right? As you said, in terms of the research, when kids don't come to school, they don't pass. So I think it would be great information for this board to know, with the investment we've made in resiliency coordinators and how effective they are. What are the interventions, and how can we then capitalize on the ones that are working and streamline the ones that aren't, so that we can make more informed decisions about how to boost up what is working, so that we can make this a priority. So that's one thing. And then you mentioned the piece about, discipline and kids that are out of school suspended being 300 times more likely to not come to school. So that was this tidbit of a finding that you have, but I don't really know what our data is around how often what we're doing as practices here in Biddeford is contributing to that. I have no idea how often we're suspending kids and then not seeing them. So again, I think as a board, we're very committed to this. We're investing in this, but we need some more data with some of the things that are presented. And so I know every time you give me a really beautiful, well-done list, I say I need more now. But I guess that's what I'm saying again.
So Megan, might I suggest that rather than a fourth 10-page memo from me, that the resiliency coordinators who meet vertically as a team on a monthly basis, primarily with Mandy, but sometimes with me, mostly Mandy, that we have some of those folks come in and talk a little bit
I feel like
about.
that's what I wanted, back in the spring. So I would love that.
Okay. So at our next meeting, which is coming up, why don't I propose to a couple of folks that represent sort of a nice cross of, ages, for example. We'll get someone from early primary, maybe someone from middle and someone from high school, and ask them to come and maybe just do a Q&A, have perhaps a presentation for the board about, here's what my average day looks like. Here's how many kids I go and pick up. Here's how many kids that I sit with their JCCO and talk about their parole plan and how that's impacting their accumulation of credits at the high school or something like that. And that might be that qualitative piece might be more beneficial to you to tell stories rather than the qualitative piece that I keep bringing to you.
Right, and I wonder if that's actually not the first step. Maybe the first step is some of us who are really, obviously very zeroed in on this, going to them.
Sure.
Instead of asking them to come to a meeting like this and
Yeah.
presenting, because that's a high anxiety provoking thing. So like, I'm the dog with the bone in this. If you tell me when to show up, like, I'll show up. And I know some of the rest of us will as well. But, a candid conversation that doesn't feel like a presentation to the board
Yeah.
might be more beneficial.
Those meetings are calendared for the entire year, so I'm happy to have Carrie send out those dates. And there's not a Zoom, but a Google Meets option, and anyone on the committee that wanted to pop in and be part of that dialogue, that would be great.
And then just let them know that might happen so they don't all of a sudden
Of
have a
course.
school
Yeah,
board
no, of
member on
course.
the
Yeah, yeah.
screen. And
Yeah.
what did I do?
I'm making myself a note to contact Carrie about that.
Chad?
Appreciate the work. I'm still trying to digest it and really understand truancy in general. The two main topics that came up today, which I don't necessarily agree are the focus point, but they seem to be the focus point in today's discussion, are price per student and discipline. And I can't imagine that we as a town believe we need to increase the cost per student, or that's feasible given the economic state of the country, the city, the state, and whatnot. And second, I hope that you're not indicating by that section V, discipline as a predictor, that we need less discipline. Is that what?
I make absolutely no judgment about
Okay.
discipline. I don't issue discipline outside of a Title IX context, Chad. I'm just telling you what the research shows.
Okay. I'd be interested in attending those meetings as well.
Fantastic.
But I do think, Chad, that like one of the things, and didn't mention here because we'll talk about it during budget piece, but I did run some numbers of just comparative of like staff ratios to students, and taking the data that I had on hand about Saco schools in here, because that was easy to compare. If I used the same ratio of the number of just people in the teachers unit, that includes guidance, nurses, social workers, others, if we used that ratio that they have and applied it to our students here, we would have 27 additional positions in the district. That's a lot. That's a lot. So some of those things come into play, and like over time, people have talked about like number of guidance counselors at a high school, number of social workers at a high school. That number is inclusive of those positions, and that has a little bit more work to do to break down, because in our situation I did remove vocational teachers from the ratio because that's paid obviously differently and has kids from but that includes high school staff. I now need to just line up elementary for elementary, because typically you have more staff at a high school and a lower ratio of number of students to adults than you do at an elementary school. And I think it's just something that we can do a bigger look at to see where some of the interventions are in other places.
Now, I'd appreciate that, and I think this is the first chart that the numbers somewhat tie out to what I would expect. For example, if you just assume it's 20,000 per student, the Biddeford line times the 2,500 students, that roughly equals about the 50 million. Previous charts I've seen about price per student and charts you've supplied that compare us to other towns, it's down, I believe, 13 to 15,000
Correct.
per student. So I'm struggling to really understand truth.
Yep.
And I think I would prefer just the data, not the data manipulated in a way that maybe makes sense to other people. Just because I don't really understand, and when it's not consistent, I don't know who can understand it.
The biggest piece is taking out vocational education, because you get hit with $3 million here per student that Massabesic doesn't get hit with, because you get that funding from the state, but it counts towards your per spending, just like Sanford gets the same thing, but Kennebunk doesn't get that number. That's the big one right there. The other one is local debt. And there's obviously the voters here have raised their hand for local debt on the high school, whereas a voter in Sanford got brand new schools covered by the state. So those are the two big factors. The vocational one's pretty key, because there's only 27 of those municipalities in the state that are basically a pass-through for state funding that gets hit on your local cost per student, when it really doesn't have anything to do with your taxpayers, if that makes sense.
Marie?
I just want to say that this truancy piece is huge. If we're looking to raise the bar in academic scores, if they're not in school, they're not learning, which is going to impact academic achievement, academic, scores. But more importantly, it impacts a child's potential future success if they're missing too much school. And so for me, the academic raising of scores and the truancy go hand in hand. We've got to get kids in school. Again, I've said this before. I've been out and about, and even out and about today, and we have kids who, whether it's here, I don't know where they're from, and I almost feel like asking them sometimes, but it's in the middle of the day during school hours, and they're not in school. They're with a parent in a Target, in a Demoulas, or Market Basket, or, TJX or Walmart. They need to be in school. That's where the learning takes place. And all too often, it's way too many kids that I see out and about during the day, of all ages, all demographics, various races, just out and about, not in school. So, again, we got to get them in school.
I just want to say, I don't think this is any one person's problem. I don't think the school isn't doing everything. I want to be really clear to the people who are listening in the school and are here from schools, resiliency coordinators, principals, guidance counselors, social workers. I think everybody's working really hard. I think everybody knows we need kids here, and I think everyone's trying really hard to have kids here. I think it's our job as a board to figure out how to support that work more and help that work happen more. And I think it has to become our priority to make it easier for you all to have this happen. I don't want some of this feedback to come across as being like what's happening right now isn't enough and someone's not doing their job. I think people are doing their job. They're doing their job really well and they're working hard. I agree that it's such a priority. We need to make sure whatever barriers there are to that we can control, we're aware of and we're working on. So I don't want that to come across, any of this conversation to come across as feeling critical. From my perspective. Chad might be different, I don't know.
Well, thank you. Thanks for a good discussion. As an engineer, I'm fond of the saying, you get what you measure. And so good, we're tracking this. And it's worth highlighting for the committee. I mean, we're doing good work on this. We have good discussion. The number is improving, and pretty significantly. So, that And I believe in our resiliency coordinators. I love working with them. I think they do a great job. So I think we keep this trend going as it has been. You know, it's pretty positive.
Yeah,
where we're headed.
I don't want to belabor the point, but I want to bring some humanity to this conversation. You sponsor a 40-student alternative placement school. The director was out in that school today. I sat in because there are a couple of violent kids over there that she has some concerns about. The staff over there went to pick up a mother and her baby to bring them to school. Then the staff went over there to pick up a student who was meeting with their probation officer and wasn't going to get to their second block on time. And then that same staff member went over in response to a crying grandmother who was the guardian of a child who could not get that child out the door to come to school. And that's the kind of work that happens there every day. And every single one of those kids is chronically absent or truant. And it's not for lack of care, and it's not for lack of trying, and it's not for lack of discipline, and it's not for lack of compassion. It's for meeting those kids halfway. It's yeoman's work. It's good work. And I'm proud of my colleagues who do it.
Thank you. You're here. Well said. Appreciate it. Okay, well, thanks to those committee members who are looking to be part of that discussion with the resiliency team. I may look to jump in one of those myself. It sounds really interesting. That will take us to item C. Do you want to talk about this the same way, Superintendent Ray, where we did bring this up in the last meeting, and this ML department chair job description, which is a stipend, but do you want to just cue it up for us a little bit?
Yeah, it's just making sure last meeting you talked about that stipend. There's a job description for approval here for you guys, so we would need a motion on that approval.
Anybody would like to make a motion on this one?
So moved.
Second.
That's moved by Megan and seconded by Marie. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Thanks for bringing that forward. I think it's going to be a big help and good idea and good step. Ms. Sear, looks like will take us through the overview of the Professional Development Day.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Just wanted to give a quick recap on our first full-day professional development opportunity that we had on October 10th. Biddeford Primary School had a fantastic day focusing on curriculum. If you recall, both or K to 5 did receive new interreading curriculum last year, and so they're working on aligning that curriculum along with Math in Focus, which was another updated curriculum K through 8. So they spent a great deal of time that day working on that. Both of those curriculum pieces come with technology components, apps, if you will, that they need to be trained on and need to work with so that they can better understand how to utilize the platforms that they now have access to. And then finally, they had small groups looking at MTSS data. So those are our groups that we have in our school that will be looking at different touch points, data points for our students. Could be attendance, or it is attendance. It's going to be behavior data. It is going to be grade, academic data, all the data that we can get when we're talking about a student's learner profile and developing plans for individual students that aren't qualifying for special education or a 504. Additional supports in place to have them get to a successful place in school. Biddeford Intermediate School focused on mandatory training, which is sexual abuse prevention, suicide prevention, and safety care for the special education department. They also worked on aligning curriculum with the interreading and Math in Focus, and conducted data analysis for RTI and WIN intervention groups. So RTI in this case, it's very similar to the multi-tiered systems of support, truly just a different iteration of the name and how it's referred to. At Biddeford Intermediate School, they will change their WIN time or their what I need time throughout the year to cluster groups of students with their needs. So if there are 10 students that need to work on a skill in math, they will put them together and give targeted instruction for those areas. When students feel that they have that skill, they're moved on to a different group so their needs can best be met. Biddeford Middle School, they focused with bar training, and they worked on trauma-informed educational practices for all staff and educational technicians. Biddeford High School and the Alternative Pathways Center, you all know that they are gearing up for their accreditation visit. Their collaborative conference is going to be in the spring. That is a ton of work, all hands on deck, and they're gathering evidence right now to write their self-reflection report based on the standards that the NEAS committee has for them. So they're working on that currently. Biddeford Regional Center of Technology, those folks were up in Lewiston. Every year on that particular date, they're at a conference with their colleagues from all across the state and worked on AI workshops, industry partnerships, and trauma-informed practices. So a very busy day in the district. As you can see, there are so many different needs in our buildings and our grade spans that to do a full day comprehensive training that met everybody's needs wasn't going to happen this year. So we focused on doing things a little bit different.
Thanks, Mandy. It sounds like a really good day. Any questions from the committee? Thanks for making the most of that time. And
Our building leaders did a fantastic job. They did great work.
good. The mention of the APC program reminds me that we hosted the Alternative Pathways program at City Hall yesterday, and the kids were great, and showed them around the mayor's office and council chambers and so forth, and it was fun. They were able to walk over from Bacon Street. It was pretty neat. So good. Well, this is a great report, and I think if we could make it a habit after the PD days, it's nice to see. Thanks.
We have one more this year.
That's what I was going to say, that I found it very informative, and I'd like to see more of these coming forward. I think it's nice to see what everybody, is working on and all the hard work that they put into everything that they do on those days. So thank you for everybody's effort.
Hear, hear. Okay. Very good. This takes us to item E, which is a memorandum, a vote to approve amendments to the 403B plan. Would you like to cue this one up for us, Jeremy?
I'd love to give you the exciting stuff. 403B plans are accessed by employees each year. You have to look at any tax changes, update your plans, so that employees have the opportunity to put money away. What this is, we had ours reviewed by Drummond and Woodson to update those changes, and the changes are in the document that you have. We do.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved by Megan and seconded by Marie to approve the amendments to the 403B plan. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? And that is unanimous. Very good. Okay, this takes us to a series of first readings, and Michelle's policy committee chair, you've done a lot of great work with this. As I mentioned, we won't be taking up K, the policy AD, so if I start reading that one, we get to that point, Randy will slap me across the head. Do you want to cue any or speak to any of these as we go through them, Michelle, or at least make the motions?
There was a detachment that described all of the policies and why we made the changes, but does it make sense to do them separately?
I think we want to do them separately, yeah, so we'll
Maybe.
just go through
Yeah.
them, and if there's anything to highlight or anybody wants to bring up, let's do that. Marie?
Again, I just want to thank Chris and Mandy for putting together this memo. Again, extremely informative to have that in front of us, not just I like the breakdown of what it is you're doing, of everything that the policy means. So again, thank you for your work on that.
Okay, let's roll through them. Item F, first reading, IFF remote instruction policy.
So moved.
Second?
That's moved by Michelle, seconded by Marie. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? And that is unanimous. Okay, item G, first reading, IKF graduation requirements.
So moved.
Second.
That's moved by Michelle, seconded by Megan. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, item H, first reading BEDH, public comment at school committee meetings.
So moved.
Second.
It's moved by, moved by Michelle and seconded by Marie. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? And that is unanimous. Item I, first reading ACAA, harassment and sexual harassment of students.
So moved.
Second.
That's moved by Michelle and seconded by Megan. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, item J, first reading ACAB, harassment and sexual harassment of school employees.
So moved.
Second.
That's moved by Michelle and seconded by Marie. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? And that's unanimous. We're skipping item K. We'll go to item L, first reading JIH, questioning and searches of students.
So moved.
Second.
That's moved by Michelle, seconded by Megan. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? And that is unanimous. And the last one, item M, first reading of JLCD, administration of medication to students.
So moved.
Second.
That's moved by Michelle and seconded by Megan. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thanks, committee. Thanks for all of your good work and everything that we've updated, including definitely Mr. Endorf. Okay. Anyone from the public wishing to address the committee tonight, please come up. I think Rich has got the microphone going for you.
Good evening. My name is Crystal Blaze. I am a parent of 3 amazing teenagers who attend Biddeford High School. Tonight I am here speaking to you on behalf of parents of the Biddeford boys ice hockey players. We are asking you to please consider opening up discussions around providing bus transportation for high school boys ice hockey players to and from practice. It's important that I provide adequate background on the reason for this request. First, Biddeford High School does not have enough male athletes interested in playing ice hockey to form a team on our own. In past years, we've co-opted with Massabesic and Old Orchard Beach to gain enough players. That co-op ended at the end of last season and was not renewed. Knowing this would be the case, Mr. Walton held a parent meeting on the evening of April 22nd to discuss the future of boys ice hockey. At that meeting, parents learned the only viable option was to co-op with York High School, and that they would be the host school. At that time, parents agreed to enter a co-op. On September 25th, Mr. Walton led another parent meeting revealing that practices are held at an outdoor facility in Durham, New Hampshire, 50 to 70 minutes away, one way, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 5 to 6 p.m., which creates an unmanageable barrier for working parents. All parent suggestions for district travel assistance were rejected. Furthermore, Mr. Walton raised the district cost is now only $1,000 per player, far less than the actual cost. Our inquiries regarding the remaining boys ice hockey budget have been met with deflection. Since that September meeting, my husband reached out personally to Superintendent Ray to discuss providing a bus for practices. On Monday of this week, Mr. Ray turned down the idea, instead offering a small bus a parent could drive. Each parent willing to drive would have to be fingerprinted, fill out a volunteer form, and provide their license to the leadership office, which I think is more than fair. But we are not guaranteed that vehicle for available use. This bus, however, will still not hold the necessary amount of players and their equipment to alleviate the barrier. One might ask, when has Biddeford provided transportation for practices? The answer is never. But I ask you, in return, when has Biddeford ever asked its players to drive an hour or more one way to practice multiple times per week? The answer is never. As a parent, I stand before you tonight with serious concerns for the future of Biddeford boys ice hockey. First and foremost, I am concerned about the barriers of playing. Second is player safety, but there are more concerns beyond these two. I understand this is a learning year for everyone involved. Parents just want to see this new opportunity set up for success. Please consider removing the barrier of travel to play hockey and consider safety a priority for our players and allow bus transportation of our players to and from practice. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Blaze. Others? Okay, we always appreciate hearing from you, and certainly take those comments seriously. And
So do we comment on, I mean, we have an opportunity to understand.
I'll open that up. Yeah, comments from the committee.
Oh, Tom's got.
There must be a reason why we don't allow.
Start out with your name, if you would.
What's that?
Just start out with your name, if you would, or
My name?
yeah,
Tom Sivity.
yeah. Thanks.
There must be a reason why we don't allow players to drive their cars to games anywhere. And that's obviously because the hazards of them driving home, probably, right? I'm thinking there's going to be one of the carloads with kids coming home on Friday night that's going to start their partying a little early. Every Friday, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever, Monday. It's only going to be 2 or 3 kids. But I think the school is responsible for the kids from school to the facilities and back to the school. I mean, obviously you can't take care of them from school to home. But I think you have to draw a line somewhere. And considering this is an hour away, an hour and 10 minutes away, in another state, I mean, you got 15 or 6, I think it's 13 kids going to be going up to New Hampshire. 1 or 2 of them are going to be having a few beers on the way home. I mean, when I was a kid, I would have been one of those 2 kids, guaranteed. Now, not me, and I'm going to do my best to make sure it's not my grandson or anything like that, but I still think the school is responsible for the kids to and from the events until they get back here, when the parents either pick them up or they get off the bus and they're on their way home. I think you got to think of it like that. If I don't know what the money's left over, if it's been spent already or not. I mean, that had to have been a budget for the hockey team last year, and you had to have budgeted for it this year, even though you didn't know if there was going to be a team or not. I assume there's money in it for it. It sounds like what the hiccup is the bus driver. Because you obviously have buses at town, right? I don't know. I just think it's the school's responsibility to and from events, even if it's called practice instead of a game, because we've never had to practice an hour away or anything like that. We just happened to this year, and I think if there's money left over, we should do something about the transportation, just for the safety. I mean, it's going to save me a ton of money because I don't have to take time off of work, but I was going to, because I wasn't going to allow my grandson, which is a freshman, to hop in another car with kids older than him for that purpose. I know what happens. You get a few boys together, they're having a good old time, and maybe nothing happens the whole year long. Everyone has a good old time, but maybe something does. And if it's to and from an event, I think it's on the school's responsibility to transport them. And it's not like I said, it's not like I don't think we have the money, because I think the money's there somewhere, unless someone's already taken it and spent it somewhere else. Because you should have figured for that last year. And then next year, you got to think about it again, but next year is next year. That's basically all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Stivney. Comments from the committee?
So I understand that the ask is for us to put it on an agenda to discuss as a committee, right? So the process to do that would be us saying, we want to put this on the agenda as a committee? I mean, that's what we're being asked to do. Am I understanding that correctly?
We can certainly do that.
And it's gotta be the next
Gotta
meeting.
do,
It's
we
gotta be
got,
the
we gotta
next
do it
meeting.
immediately,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. I would
Right.
second that if you want a motion or all motion.
So I make a motion that we put this on the agenda for the next meeting.
I second that.
I don't think you need a motion. We can just put it on there, and Jeremy, can you work with the team to provide supporting information?
But Chad really wanted to second
I
it.
did want to.
Okay, well,
Yes, but if there is information that people need, you need to make sure that I provide you with the right information. Meaning, like one of the things, let's say that you go in this direction. I don't have enough bus drivers typically to get kids to school. So I need to clearly know from the committee, if we went into this direction, what are the priorities that Dennis, myself, Mike Hallett operates from, because there could be several times that I don't have enough to get people to school. Am I making a decision of, okay, not worrying about that to this? I want to know exactly what we're doing here, because a big part of this is a driver situation.
So to that point, that's one of the things I think would be valuable information, is understand who is available, because this wouldn't be during normal transportation hours. So I'm assuming some of the bus drivers that would be tasked in the morning or right after school may be available. Are there interests from the existing bus drivers? To Mr. Sivney's point, what was the budget originally put in? And these are things that we
Yeah.
went over today, but I think it'd behoove the board to have that discussion as a group.
Right, because I want to say, like, I know that we provide transportation to games, but I know, like, for instance, you know, the football team gets transported by bus to home games.
Yep.
So I know there are drivers that drive at night, and again, we're talking about extra right now, but I mean, I'm not sure where, you know, I'd like to hear you say, like, we're in a position where we're choosing between kids going to school or kids going to practice. I mean, you know, are we there? Or are we in a position where, you know, these are a couple of nights more a week where we're asking for nighttime bus drivers like we do for games such as football and basketball.
And I can get you all that information, because my
Right.
current understanding is that these are 5 o'clock practices, correct? 5 o'clock practices, which I've never put on hockey gear, but I'm assuming it takes longer than basketball. So if you left at 3:45, so at 3:30, all of my regular bus drivers are still on the road with middle school and high school runs. And that's why the offer of using a Dayton minibus that holds 12 students and 2 adults driving is something that I can have available for not all 36, because they may have a need for it. The problems I have is I don't have a driver. That does not require a CDL license. That is something that we talked about, had conversation with Mr. Blaze. I don't want to call you Nick here, I'll call you Mr. Blaze. That we would be very interested, we talked to him about trying to find somebody to drive consistently, and that seemed like a challenge. That's still on the table, if we can find someone consistently to drive. I just need 100%. We could do those things. What I don't feel comfortable doing is not having fingerprinting of a person because they're going to be alone with children consistently. I need to have a record check to make sure they haven't. Correct. Can do those things. I don't have a big yellow bus and a bus driver available. And then you have to make the decision, is this what you're going to open up? Because, again, if we do this for ice hockey for 1 year or 2 years, and this then comes down the road, again, we have to have the same, if that request comes from whatever that group is in the future that could be an MPA sport or not, are we going to make the same decision this consistently on those? I have a 12-passenger bus that holds 2 people in the front, 12 in the back, with a space for a lift that we could use. There are 7 kids signed up right now. If we have 11, that'd be awesome. I don't, the bus driver is the hard part.
So it seems like we do need to at least put this on the agenda
Sure.
to problem solve, because I think what we've said as a committee all along is it's our priority to get kids involved in sports. I think this does bring up safety issues, right? We all agree, like, we're all, you know, parents and safe adults as well. We know when a 16-year-old gets their license, they can't drive anybody for 9 months, like winter months driving, like, parents are at work at 3:30, like, we get it. So we at least have to put this on the agenda and try to problem solve these things out in the next 2 weeks.
So,
Okay, I'm
if-
gonna be quiet.
If I can take the action to work with Jeremy and Dennis to come up with an agenda or the questions that I believe are still posed, the answers that I think have been provided, and maybe a timeline that is consistent between both parties, so we can have a discussion next meeting.
That works. Chris?
Marty, point of order, for what it's worth, in 2014, Jeremy designated me the parliamentarian. Agenda development is between the vice chair and the superintendent. There can be no motion for an agenda item, so just want to raise that. But it sounds like the committee is pretty unanimous in its sentiment that this is something they want to tackle the next meeting. But I just wanted to, for the minutes, for the purpose of the minutes, that there should not be a vote taken on an agenda item.
Agreed with the superintendent. We'll take it up with the vice chair and we'll get it on the next agenda if she approves. Okay. Sounds good. Good discussion. Thank you. We'll look forward to digging into this and hope everyone can make it to the next meeting. And it's great to see the hockey program growing and doing well. We're proud of it. The fun aside is that I've had fairly serious outreach from the Mariners organization for their practice facility, and it's early days, but I'm able to talk about it publicly that we, you know, investing in the Biddeford Ice Arena would be part of that, which should improve availability. Okay, back to the committee. Communications, updates, events, anything like that? Okay, I do have a couple. I just have one thing as we were reading through the, that I wanted to highlight. Resignations, Linda Crapo retiring, congratulations, thank you, the BPS kitchen manager. Really appreciate your service, and I'm sorry that I didn't highlight that earlier. Lots of good things coming up for Halloween, and one of them is by the YMCA is doing an indoor thing Thursday night from 5:30 to 7:30, so that's tomorrow night, very kid-friendly. Swing by there. And then Friday night right here at Biddeford High School, Biddeford Rec, in the Steve White Gym parking lot, has a trunk or treat event that starts at 5:30. It looks like that one is going to have a good crowd and lots of displays. It should be good. Saturday, 10 to 2, at the transfer station is drug take-back. So this is the day when you can get those expired medications out and drop them off over there for safe disposal. And just to highlight that the Veterans Day Parade, of course, will be on Tuesday the 11th. We will be starting this year in Mechanics Park, and there are a couple of reasons for that. One of them is construction near Veterans Memorial Park, but also wonderful opportunity. We worked with Maine DOT, and we are naming the bridge there in honor of General Wallace Nutting, of course, former mayor, and that will be part of the ceremony. So Veterans Day, 9:30 a.m. at Mechanics Park on Tuesday, the 11th. With that, that's all I have from me. I would take a motion to go into executive session. I'll thank Mr. Dutremble for filling in for Mr. Stebbins. We will not be coming back, so we can wrap the meeting. And Marie, would you like to make the motion?
Yeah, make a motion that we move to executive session to review the collection of data for the evaluation committee pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056B.
That's moved by Marie, seconded by Chad. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you, committee will convene up there, and thanks for
Motion to
everybody.
adjourn?
We'll get that after the,
Oh, we'll make that
yeah,
there.
we'll get that
Got
in
it.
there, so.
Okay.
Yep. Thanks again, Rich.